All right, welcome. Show that it is 3 o'clock on the dot. Thank you so much for joining. Martin, I think you're going to lead us off, so the floor is yours, sir.
All right, well, thank you, Jamie. If you will give me the host, I'll be happy to also share my screen. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this very important informational webinar about the Florida Boat Safety Act, also known as SB 606. Before we begin, let me just remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded, and it will also be available after the webinar for those who are interested. I've been working with boat rental businesses for over a decade, and Booking Central is the newest booking platform designed specifically for boat rentals, including pontoon rentals, wave runners, stand-up paddleboards, kayaks, and similar activities and rentals on the water. My responsibility here at the business is to make sure that our system has everything you need to manage your pending bookings, your confirmed bookings, and quotes for that matter. And it's also to ensure that it's easy to use for you and for your customers and for your workers in the field, both on the dock and in the office. During the last few months, we've been hearing a lot of questions from businesses with concerns about this new law. How does it affect my business? What do I need to do? Do I need to get more insurance? Can I use the one that I have? And many other questions. We also found that a number of businesses were not fully aware that there was a new law that started and went into effect here on January 1st. We wanted to help the boat rental community in 3 different ways. First, make sure that there is a system like Booking Central where you can run your business without having delays either in the office or at the dock. And 2, make sense that you don't lose customers that don't want to sign up, for example, because of the emergency contact requirements or information about the number of participants on the rentals. The first 2 we already got implemented last year in the system. It's a feature called pre-check-in, and you'll get a chance to see it a little bit later in this webinar. To help with the third item, which is to solve all the questions about the law, we teamed up with probably one of the best experts in the field, Lieutenant Seth Wagner from the FWC. And you will meet him in just a second. But before we get to that, I would like to introduce Jamie Devlin, our COO, who will tell us more about Lieutenant Seth Wagner and moderate the rest of this event.
All right, thank you, Martin. Much appreciated. And I need to take back control so that I can share my screen. Maybe you need to give it to me, Martin.
You're all good.
Thank you, sir. Okay, well, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you to Lieutenant Seth Wagner. And thank you so much for your willingness, Lieutenant Wagner, to join us today. So just a really quick bio, little time to embarrass our important guest here. Lieutenant Wagner began his career in law enforcement with the FWC in 2002. He served as field training officer, instructor for the airboat and vessel operations, and as a member of the FWC Honor Guard. In 2012, Lieutenant Wagner was promoted to lieutenant in the boating and waterways section of the FWC. He reviews all boating accident reports that occur in Florida and provides instruction to all new recruits at the Academy on Navigational Rules, Vessel Law, and Boating Accident Investigation. He served on the committee as committee chair on NASBLA's Engineering, Research, and Analysis Committee. He's also worked with the Boat Passenger Surveillance Work Group, Boat Accident Investigation Standards Panel, and the Recreational Boating Incident Reporting Work Group. Lieutenant Wagner complies FWC's annual boating accident statistics report for Florida and provides statistical data to multiple sections within the FWC and other agencies to improve boating safety. So as you can see, I think we have the right gentleman to join us today to help us better understand this law and answer your questions. Lieutenant Wagner, thank you again for being here. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Jamie. Between you and Martin, I think I need to have you guys announce me for all my different meetings and stuff. I feel like I know something. So all jokes aside, this Boating Safety Act, or some people know as 606, it came about from a lot of issues that we were seeing in our state that derived from rental boats. It was a concerted effort really that started off in the South Florida area, where, as you can imagine, we have a lot of rental activity. And we have noticed that there's been a slow but constant uptick in, one, the rentals that are out there, and they're showing up in our boating accident statistics. So as you can see, in 2021, we had 751 boating accidents. Florida has been the #1 state in the USA for boating accidents, due to we have a year-round boating season, a large number of registered vessels, and just activity in general out there. So it's not really a shocker to most people, I would think, especially if you're from Florida. Our average is roughly 723 a year, and that's all accidents. If you start looking at drilling down a little bit further, persons that have lost their lives in incidents, that average is about 55, 56 a year. Sometimes we hit a few peaks where we get in the higher 60s. But on average, it's a little over 50 each year, where someone loses their life just out recreating on the water. And then, of course, a lot of that is, again, involved with our rental and tour issues that are out there, and mainly our rentals. In general, just about every year, 20% of all boats that are out on the water that are involved in incidents are rental boats. So you can imagine, you don't think of it at that high of a percentage when you start looking at numbers, but when you really start comparing the seriousness of the incidents involved, that's where they really start representing a higher number. Next slide, please. So with that, the legislature decided that they needed to implement a means of controlling liveries in a way to, just a means of one, knowing what businesses are out there operating as liveries, because at the current time, there was no regulation to it. They were just businesses. They just had to get business licenses and things like that, if applicable to their location, and they could go out and rent their boats and stuff. There was minimal requirement, mainly for PWC businesses. If you're familiar, that they had insurance requirements and things like that, had to do minimum training and such of those things. With the 606 bill, we came back and finally said, hey, we need to define livery, so people understand if they are or not, considered a livery, and then they know how to be able to comply and those kind of things. So as you can see on the screen, we defined livery as to means a person who advertises and offers the livery vessel for use. So advertise means exactly like you could think. It could be on social media. It could be, on websites, newspaper, magazine, print, anything like that. If you are making it known that you are offering a vessel for use and for lease or rent, you have the potential, because you're considered to be advertising. And then if you're also offering that same vessel or other vessels for use, those two pieces together, you are considered a livery. So if you're using a third party to list your vessel and get the word out and attract clients, you as the boat owner and are providing that boat to those clients after they've collected and everything, you as the boat owner are still the livery, not the third party. I'll use an example of that being Boat Setter. The members of Boat Setter that own the boats and list their boats on the Boat Setter website, those boat owners are liveries, each individual one of them, not Boat Setter as a company. They are just a third-party listing agency. On the flip side of that, You could say, as an example, again, Freedom Boat Club itself is the livery, because they're the ones that offer the vessels, they advertise them and to their membership, and then they also are the ones that provide the vessel. So that's the two different pieces there to kind of help give an idea or a picture of what it is. So and then also if you're allowing your friend to use your boat and he gives you some money for gas, you know, or to help buy bait, things like that, or you're taking your friend out and they're part, you know, helping you out with the costs and things like that, you're not a livery. You're not advertising it at the time. And just those little small changes in funds or whatever, just to help everybody go out and enjoy the water. We're not considering you liveries. I also will, I need to put a piece out there. A lot of the bareboat charter cruise, if you consider yourself a bareboat charter, that is a federal term that's Coast Guard uses as a term. Florida does not recognize the term bareboat charter. So you will fall into two categories. You either are a true bareboat charter and fall under federal regulation through the U.S. Coast Guard, or you are a rental vessel. And it really falls down to the fine detail. When you charter your vessel out for use, are you requiring a approved captain and crew, or are you providing a boat as it would be defined as a bare boat, and then your renter operates it or gets somebody else to drive it, and you have your hands off? You just, you know, you give them the boat and then you go pick it up at the end of the term of the agreement. So if you are requiring them to use an approved captain and crew that you have as a list of approves, you in the Florida's eyes are not a livery. That is a charter boat. That gray area between whether or not you're a bareboat charter and everything, that is something the Coast Guard can deal with. That is outside of our purview. Again, if you're just giving the boat as it is, as a bare boat, and your renter is the one that's going to operate or anything else, you are a rental vessel. So we get that argument every now and then from certain people who they try to say, well, I'm a bareboat charter. And I'm like, well, are you providing the boat? And they're like, yes. And they drive to the boat ramp and they give it to the renter, and the renter drives it away. I'm like, so you're a rental boat in Florida. You're a livery. And that's a livery vessel. So hopefully that clears up any cloud there. Next slide. So what does the new law mean for boat rental companies? And I'm using the companies loosely, because as an individual, again, if you are an individual and you have one boat and you advertise it in one way or another for use and you provide that boat, you are a livery. So it's not just companies per se. You don't have to have an LLC to be considered a livery. So a livery may not offer a vessel for lease or rent without having a permit that's issued by us, the FWC. It is an annual permit. It is no cost. You just have to provide some documentation to us to show that you are abiding by the requirements of the new statute, insurance, training. You have all the equipment and things like that. And we're actually going to go through a few of those here on the thing. So you'll see that you have to have a written agreement with your renter or leasee. I would imagine that just about everybody already has one of those. We do not have a actual form that you would use. You need to have some type of written agreement between yourself and your renter or lessee for your vessel that spells out the time of the use of the vessel and all those kind of details for your rental. Again, for that agreement, we don't have something that you would be using. There's no form issued by our agency. Delivery needs to maintain that agreement. In other words, keep it as in records for up to a year. That is in case there's an incident that's involved and somebody needs those records for any type of litigation or anything like that for follow-up. So you'll need to maintain your records for at least a year. If you want to go above and beyond that, that's fine. You do not have to have it in strictly paper form. You can scan those documents, and as long as they are clean and clear and able to be researched and located quickly, you can keep scanned documents and not have to keep the original. But again, it needs to be every bit of the document. It needs to be clean. It needs to be clear. Next slide, please. So again, here's some of the details that you'll need on your rental agreement, for the names, address of people, dates of birth of the renter, number of people that are going to be on board. It may seem like this is a lot of information that you don't want to collect, but in the end, this is actually going to be protecting you as the delivery operator, because you're going to have definitive documentation. So it's I'll use this example that the number of people aboard the vessel. You rent a center console 19-foot boat, and they tell you they're only going to have 4 people on board, and you provide all the equipment, all the training, everything, and to account for those 4 people. They go take the boat out and then go up the river or down the beach, a half mile or so, and pick up 7 other people that they wanted to keep with them the whole time. Having that documentation will allow for, if they're stopped by law enforcement for other issues, and they realize that they don't have all of the equipment and things like that on a boat for the number of people they have, you as delivery have the documentation to say, hey, I only provided it for this number of people because this is what they said they were going to have, and this is the agreement that we had between us. So it removes you and your liability from that, and it would all be on the operator or renter of the boat at the time, and not the livery or boat owner. So just a good example of this might seem like a little bit of extra work for you, but in the end, it actually is something good for you in a business and personal expense standpoint. The time the vessel is required to be returned is a big one, because you're going to need to be able to notify law enforcement of overdue boats if they're past 4 hours from their due date. It'd be a good idea to also know where they intend to be out and operating and those kind of things, so you can provide law enforcement with a means of area to go and start trying to locate them and things like that. The emergency contact name and telephone number information. It would be good if it's not somebody that is on the vessel, obviously, because then we have somebody that we can reach out to, or yourself, and try to get a contact outside of you to reach out to those people. If there's an issue going on and your emergency contact is one of the people on a boat, you may or may not be able to contact that person, and so it's kind of a moot point. Next slide. The insurance requirement. This is what everybody's got the questions on, right? So when the statute was written, the unintended consequence of some of the language was that many of the insurance providers in this state could not write policies that met the statute language, because the policy requires you as the livery to obtain a policy that covers liability for you, your vessel, and your renter. So that responsibility is on you as the livery to get that policy. And to have that policy to apply for a permit, that policy has to already be in place. Once that language was out and we saw what was going on and reached out with some of the insurance companies to notice the impact that it was going to have, we started notifying those involved, legislature and OIR and stuff, to try to see what we can do to mitigate that issue. Everybody knows we already have an insurance crisis, for lack of a better word, here in Florida, with all the different coverages that we need for hurricane policies, flood, and everything else. And so adding an extra requirement onto commercial liability policies, it just made it hard to attain. Most of the large companies that we had in the state that reached out to me had initially expressed that they would not write coverage at all for the state. We're basically going to stop. So the potential at the time was that, from a legal standpoint, we were almost going to shut down an industry because of the way the statute was written. At our commission meeting, we brought forth all that information, and our commissioners approved what we normally do anyway, is taking an educational approach. So law enforcement will not be taking a legal action against you as a livery if you do not have a permit or do not have the insurance that expressly covers your renter. You will need to have insurance. but you do not have to have insurance that will expressly cover your renter because it may be unattainable depending on who you have as an insurance provider, the vessels you have, and your price point. But I will say you do need to have some type of insurance. So originally, the insurance requirement was strictly for personal watercraft, and it had to have the 500,000 per person, 1 million per event minimum coverage for liability. That was now extended to all motorized vessels. So if you offer a motorized vessel for lease and you're considered a livery and you have livery vessels, you will not need to have livery insurance, liability insurance that covers you and your vessel for those minimum coverages. And since we've been working through the issues of the language of the law, we've seen a few companies that have been able to come around and start writing policies. Currently, I have 18 permits that we've actually issued to liveries because they have been able to attain coverage that meets all those requirements. So it's getting there, and there's some other providers that are working on a few things that should be coming out very soon that meet those requirements as well. So even more people will actually get a permit. But the good thing is, with the education period until legislature can address the issue in the law, we are not taking action against you for not having your permit. So we're not shutting down your business. You can operate as normal. You just need to abide by all the other pieces of this livery statute, and everything is good. We're not shutting down your business. We're not trying to impact you or anything like that to get you going, because we don't want to do that. Next slide, please. Good questions. Like I said, the insurance was the big piece.
Yeah, the insurance is definitely the big thing. And there have been some questions that came in prior to this webinar, Lieutenant Wagner, and I think I see some Q&A that's starting to pop up too. So let me just start with a few of the questions that have came in before, let you field those, and then we can see what's in the Q&A box.
Sure.
So is this only for motorized vessels? What about canoes, kayaks, vessels like that?
So the livery law covers all vessels. So it includes kayaks, stand-up paddle boards, all of those things. If it's deemed a vessel, you are included most likely in the livery. So again, if you advertise your vessels, whether it be stand-up paddle boards, kayaks, motorboats, pontoon boats, sailboats, you advertise it and then you also provide it, you would be considered a livery. The insurance requirement is only for motorized craft. So if you have only kayaks or SUPs or something like of that nature, you do not have to have the insurance, but you still have to abide by all of the other livery requirements, and you still have to get a livery permit.
Great, thank you. I think you covered the next question, but it's kind of a general one about how will the law be enforced. Is there anything you want to add to your comments before, or do you think you covered it?
I can certainly expand on it. So it will be enforced by any law enforcement officer. So it could be your local police, it could be your sheriff's department, it could be us as Marine Patrol, Florida, Wildlife Commission. So anybody could come up and from a law enforcement perspective and ask to see the proper documentation that you need to have. You do not have to have it on every boat, your permit and those kind of things just need to be located at your place of business, and easily found and those kind of things. So it's not something where you need to carry boxes around on all your boats, things like that. Again, we are trying to take it. We're taking an educational approach to the permit and the insurance requirement expressly covering the renter. Just that little piece on the insurance. So you still need to have insurance if you have motorized craft. We're just not looking to see if you have it covered on the renter. For the most part, you're probably not going to be engaged by law enforcement unless your vessel is involved in an incident. Most often that is when the inspection stuff occurs, is either we have complaints from other people about liveries and how they're doing their business, or your vessel is involved in an incident, and then the officers come to the livery to see the documentation, things like that, to make sure that the livery is abiding by the requirements and being safe. So.
Great, thank you. Let me pause real quick here. We have a few more questions that came in beforehand, and then there are some questions that are in the Q&A box. There are a significant amount of folks who are on this call, so we are asking everybody, if you have a question or comment, please post it in that QRA chat, the Q&A chat. We are monitoring that, and we do have time here to be able to address, I would imagine, all of them. So let me go back to some of the questions that we had come in before our webinar. The next one is, what individual will be written a misdemeanor or ticket for violations? The employee who sent the boat out or the manager of the facility?
It will really depend on the investigation and what it reveals from the officer that's enforcing it. The way the statute is written, it says the livery, and then also when it talks to who is going to get the discipline side of it, it says person. So it's not naming any individual in their position. So it could potentially be the employee, the manager, or the business owner. It really would just come down to how it worked out. We don't want to cite somebody for a misdemeanor if they were not cognizant of the law. So if you have new employees that are doing something and weren't told, hey, this is how you are supposed to properly rent boats and those kind of things, then we're probably going to go talk to the manager or the livery owner and those kind of things. So there's some investigation involved in that, and to see is where the disconnect was and following the rules, and who made the decision to not follow the rules. And that's where they're going to most likely lay the responsibility on.
Great. Kind of a follow-up to that is, how will misdemeanors be tallied against the company to determine if the livery has too many, which may lead to being shut down for 90 days?
So that's kind of a two-part question. Part of this statute allowed for our agency to create rulemaking so we could actually implement the statute and create a permit and that program. So we have had our rulemaking that was also in front of our commission, and it was approved. The FAC, the Florida Administrative Code, the rule that we've created, has not been published yet because it is still under final review by the JAPC, which is the legislative review committee that looks at all rulemaking before it goes final, to make sure that it meets and falls within the authority and requirements of the law. So that's why it hasn't been published yet. But in our rulemaking, it actually spells out specifically how those violations would accrue and what would result from those different pieces. So I can go ahead and say that 2 or more convictions within a 24-month period could result in a suspension or revocation. 3 or more in a 12-month period, convictions could do the same thing. And then, of course, 5 or more over any amount of time, convictions could result in that in a revocation. That first revocation would be a 2-year period. So there would be a 2-year period where your person or business could not have a permit and operate as a livery. After that 2-year period, you could then reapply with all of the insurance requirements and things like that, and go about business. And if you continue to be cited for violations and get ultimately in convictions, again, your second opportunity for revocation would be permanent. So it's imperative that you follow the boating safety laws and statutes as required to be able to operate your business and keep out of that type of issues. And we don't want to put you out of business. You know, this is all pushing towards public safety. And a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, this is going to be, you know, it's for other reasons. And it's really not. It really comes down to public safety. We've had a lot of incidents where it was what I call illegal liveries. And it was somebody who got on Instagram, offered their PWC or boat for use, rents it out to somebody for $200-300. It gives them no training, just shows up at a boat ramp somewhere and gives them the PWC, the boat, whatever it may be. They go out and use it, get hurt, or they hurt somebody else. the owner shows up, grabs the boat, disappears into the night. And the person who was operating the boat could be injured. They could have damaged or injured somebody else, and there's no recourse because they have no information as to who the boat owner was, who the livery was, or anything else, because it was just this fly-by-night contact that they had. That's where all this is stemming from.
Great, thank you. Let me jump to some of the live questions that have come in. We have one of our participants that has said that they applied for the livery license on the 21st of December. When do you think he can expect a response or an acknowledgement that it was received?
If they applied by the 21st, they should have already received a response. If they are emailing the livery permit email, they should have already received a response. If they haven't, and for some unknown reason, I either didn't see that email or my fellow employees didn't resend it. The original email, just literally just resend it so I can see the date. I apologize if you haven't gotten their response, because clearly I oversaw that one way or another. But we will definitely look at your documentation stuff and reach back out to you if there's something that we have questions on or something that you need more of, so we can get you your permit. Again, because of the educational approach, we're not stopping you from doing your business. Continue to do your business as usual. But if you're applying for the permits, we will definitely work on getting that through. So please resend that email if I missed it.
All right, thank you. And I've made sure I know who asked that question. We'll follow up as well to help make sure there's connections there. All right. So we had another participant that asked the question in response to you talking about how you have had contact with some insurance companies that seem to be starting to write policies. They're interested in learning more about which companies you might suggest they talk to.
I'm in no means advertising for any one agency. I want you to, we're prevented from promoting one over another. But the three that I see the most often are the ones that are writing policies for it. And then there's also a few that are up and coming through some of the other boat rental vendors that you can see online and things like that. So they're out there. What I would say is probably just reach out to, if you have a local agent, reach out to your agent, let them do the work that you're paying them for, and get with those companies. Or again, most of them are the companies you're pretty familiar with. Just contact them and explain what you're looking for, and they should be able to point you in the right direction.
Great, thank you. We had a question, a follow-up question about statement that needs to be, something needs to be signed by the customer and the employee who does the training, and asked if you could elaborate on the details of this.
Yeah, so there is a form that we have created that the employee of the livery has to initial, as well as the renter has to initial that they have received all of the instruction requirements that are in statute or in the FAC, the rule. Somehow or another, I didn't get that form posted originally with all of the other stuff that's on our website. I put in a request. It hasn't been published as when we made this webinar, but it should be coming up pretty quickly. But it's literally that. It's just a checklist that says the topic, and it has 2 spots for your personnel and the renter to initial, and then all the way down to the bottom. That form is required in the way the rule was written for the agency, but it is not the final form, in that if you want to expand and provide further information or training, you certainly can do that. We are not limiting you to that. All we're saying is this is the minimum amount of required subjects that you need to go over with your renter. You can easily expand on that and create another document if you want to document that, those further training pieces and all. But the way the rule is written, you have to have at least this one form that has the minimum subjects that you need to cover during the instruction on the boat. And there's many, so I don't want to take everybody's time trying to read through them all. None of them are a shock to anybody. Most of them are what you would imagine. And some of them have just been expanded on a little bit by the statute or the rule.
I know there's some questions about the forms that have come in. One of the questions is, do we have to use the FWC forms, or can we implement those items into our current pre-ride, pre-rental forms or systems?
So the way the rule is written, it requires the instruction form to be used. But again, if you're providing more in-depth or expanding, and adding more training to it, add that form in with your other documentation that you have. We're not limiting you to doing more. And I'd suggest doing more, especially for your specific areas, and needs, because this is a state form. It's not drilled down to every area and body of water that's out there. So.
Very good. Another live question that we had come in, clarification. Is the emergency contact requirement the emergency contact at the livery, or an emergency contact for the people renting the boat?
It's an emergency contact for the persons on the boat, your renter. So if you're not able to get a hold of your renter, you can get a hold of the emergency contact who may be able to get a hold of the renter.
Thanks for the clarification. Another clarification, it says in the law, it says that the livery must display boating safety information. Can you specify exactly what and where this information needs to be in order to comply?
Sure. So those are the rental safety posters that we've incorporated for quite a few years under the regulation. You may be familiar with them. It was broken down in the categories of the type of boat. So it was personal watercraft, open motor boats, sailboats, houseboats, and paddlecraft. The PDFs of the printable version are on our website. So you are able to print those at your will and post them at all of your different locations and things like that. There's no requirement as to the color pattern. So if you want to try to make them look a little bit better for where you want to post them in your building and those kind of things, it's not a problem. They do have to meet a minimum size of, I believe, 180 square inches, which is not huge. It's basically just a normal poster size, which is what we create. If you are unable to print them or whatever and want the sign that we provide, we can do that. You just send an email to the livery permit or to me and just provide what boats you have for the signs, make sure I get you the right ones, and then obviously a location to mail it, and we'll send you a sign for each of the different vessel types you have. We're trying to be fiscally responsible with all of our funding, so we won't send you multiple signs. I can send you one sign per location or something like that at the most. So hopefully I request that you print as much as possible if you're wanting to do things different or whatever to add to them and to post them, because obviously there's a cost to it from a printing side and mailing it, because it is a hard plastic poster that we'll send out.
Great, thank you. And we can send this information in a follow-up email, Lieutenant Wagner, but we did have a request on what the email is to apply for a permit.
So the email is liverypermit@myfwc.com. And most of the questions, and like I said, all of the forms, that email, how to apply and all that is on our website. If you go to myfwc.com and just type in livery in the search, your very first response is going to be FAQ for liveries, frequently asked questions. You click on that page, all of the information is there, except for the instruction form, which is forthcoming.
Great, thank you. Just a couple more. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Are there specific waterway rules and regulations that we would need to go over with the renter to make sure we're in compliance with the law?
Not from a state standpoint, no. There may be some from your county implementation. So there may be some no motor zones or something like that. So again, that's where you need to talk about the specific waterway regulations for your location and where they intend to be operating your rental boat. Manatee zones, slow speed zones, all of those kind of things. That's what you'll need to cover. So that subject just says, characteristics of the waterway that they intend to operate their boat on. That's what they're talking about, is giving that specific information for where that boat is going to be.
Great. There was a question about how the law, if the law may disproportionately affect larger businesses with more employees.
I'm not sure how the number of employees, you only need one permit for the actual business or individual, not for all of your employees. There's no new requirements for your employees. There's no extra training or anything like that. Anybody that's given the instruction should have the NASBLA approved boater safety education. If they're providing the safe instruction for, operation and characteristics of your boat. Outside of that, there's been no changes to the requirements from your employee standpoint. So I'm not sure what they mean.
We'll see if there's a follow-up there. Let's see here. Can a PWC renter that meets all the requirements but is under 18 years old take younger riders on with them? I'm not sure if that's specific to the law, though.
I think they're just looking at the education piece of that. So,
Yeah.
Or they may be looking at it from a rental piece, because you can't have somebody that's a juvenile sign a rental agreement because it's a contract. Juveniles can't enter contracts. So you can have an adult or their guardian sign the rental agreement and then have the juvenile as the operator. Granted, that's up to your business as to whether or not you want to allow it to happen. The statute says no one can operate a PWC that's under the age of 14. The business can regulate it however they wish to on that point. But I think that's kind of where they were leaning, was a juvenile can't sign a rental agreement, but they can operate as long as they have the boater education throughout themselves. If it is, they're going to be riding with somebody else, that person either has to be exempt from boater safety education requirement or have a card.
Great. Let's see. I think there's just one or two more here. Will the livery owner be responsible for damages to resources, example, or seagrass beds, coral reefs resulting from their rental boat groundings? No, because you're not in control of the vessel at the time that the vessel was in that area. So that would be something that would fall on the renter or the operator. It may not even be the renter. It could be whoever was allowed to operate the boat at that time. Great. And there's just one more in here. I think you may have covered it, but I just want to make sure that it's clear here. The question is, the term boat has been used a lot. Is there a distinction being made between boats and PWCs, or is a boat being used as a generic term for all vessels? And the follow-up is, are the requirements to have the emergency contact information limited to boats or all motorized vessels, including PWCs?
Sorry, it's a generic term. PWC is lumped in now under all livery vessels.
Very good. All right. Well, I think that covers all the questions that come up here. I think one more that had come in before is, how is the FWC communicating updates on the law with liveries as updates are available? Sure.
So I've got a couple of different avenues that I'm using for outreach. Any of you that are utilizing the online temporary certificate providers, I've been giving them the information, and they're using your email contacts between the provider and the liveries to send out that info. We're doing stuff on our webpage, so obviously anything that's a change or anything like that, I try to make sure it's on our public facing webpage. We'll do any type of media outreach if it's something big that comes up. So social media, things like that. I wouldn't look so much at like Twitter or those kind of things, because it's such a limited character piece and response. We don't usually use that for this type of release. So we try to use the other normal medium means, and then of course outreach through all of our different partners.
Great, thank you. And of course, follow-up notes we'll share all of that information as well. I really want to thank you, Lieutenant Wagner, for taking so much time today and helping us educate boat operators and rental operators within the state. And I think we had folks from outside the state as well, just so we could better understand the law. Before we go, there are some features that we have put in place with Booking Central that can help with compliance of this law. And what I'd like to do is hand it over to Donna Holcomb, our customer service lead, to just do a really quick view of what that looks like. Again, it'll be really quick, and then we'll wrap up. So Donna, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it. So how Booking Central is supporting the SB 606 is through a feature we call pre-check-in. And if you're a user of Booking Central platform, then you're able to enable it in your account in the settings for pre-check-in here. And you can also enable some of these required fields, such as the emergency contact, name, phone number, address, as well as the renter address, date of birth, and participant information. So once you have that all enabled in your account, what happens is the customer is going to receive a confirmation email after they make the booking through Booking Central, and they'll get this information here for the rental pre-check-in. So the good thing is it doesn't hold, if the renter doesn't have, say, the emergency contact information or all of the participant information at the time of booking, it still allows them to make the booking, but then sends this follow-up link where the renter can complete the information. So what they'll do is they'll select the pre-check-in form here, and they'll get to a page like this through Booking Central where they can fill in the information. They just need to fill in the contact waivers. They can do this all at the same time, or they can come back to it. You know, the idea is to have it all completed, obviously, before they take the rental out. So once they click the button, I'll just show you quickly. You can fill in the information. Obviously, this will be the emergency contact for the renter. So they can get that information in here, and then once they fill it in, then they can save it in their and then it will update on the form that the information has been completed, and then you, as the boat rental business, can view the order in the system, and you'll be able to see on the order when the information's been completed. So here's an example of an order that's been made. All of the participant information's been added, as well as the customer contact information, as well as the emergency contact information. So all of this information, and including the waivers. So all of the waivers that are integrated through our smart waiver integration will show in this section here. So what can happen is if the customer hasn't filled in the information, then you, as the boat rental employee or owner, can also text the pre-check-in information through the order. So there's a section here for them to send the pre-check-in text. And then while we're at this section here, another feature that Booking Central has is you can send text messages to your customers. And so this supports where if you want to make sure your customer is back on time, so if they've rented the boat and they need to be back by 5 p.m., you can send them a text message and say, hey, just a reminder, your boat needs to be back in an hour. And they'll get that message, and just kind of so to make sure you're in compliance with the law. So that's under the messages section here. And then finally, we have a pre-check-in feature. So, sorry, a check-in feature. So what happens is on the day of the booking, if the renter arrives and you're checking them in through this feature here, you're going to be alerted before they take the boat out that they haven't completed this required information. And so that's when, if you're checking them in at the dock and you have your iPad, you can say, oh, you need to sign the waiver. I'm going to go ahead and send you the pre-check-in link so you can do that right away. So all of this information will be, you're ensured that you're going to get it on file before the boat goes out. And then further through the system, you'll have access to all of that information on the order for the lifetime of the system. So the requirement to keep everything on file for a year, we got you covered in Booking Central. So that's just a quick little demo of how we're supporting the law.
Great. Thanks, Donna. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. Sure.
So just to wrap up, again, Lieutenant Wagner, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. It's a ton of information, and I know it was much needed just based on all the questions that we got. So thank you again, sir, for all of your time. I want to thank everybody who joined us today to learn more about the law. At the core, this was informational. We want to make sure we get that information out there. And also to let you know that we can help you comply. So we will be archiving this webinar. We're going to be posting on our social channels some videos for follow-up. And we'll follow up as well. If anybody is interested in learning more about the system or other ways that we can help you comply with this law or other business needs that you may have, please just drop us a line. We're at team@bookingcentral.com. So again, thank you all very much for coming in and joining us today. Lieutenant Wagner, thank you again. Have a great day. Thank you.